All right. Hi, I'm David. I'm John, and this is Queer Money, the only show on the internet talking about personal finance from the LGBT perspective. We believe that there needs to be a voice in the personal finance space for our community, and that's why we're here.
And today's episode, we're going to talk about the gay wealth disparity. Is it true? Does it exist? And if so, why does it seem that gay men maybe make more money or have more money than the rest of our queer peers? Today's show is brought to us by HIV Smart. HIV Smart is dispelling the myths of HIV, so please visit our website at hivsmart.org. They do a lot of good work over there.
And as always, Queer Money is an open discussion. If you feel you'd like to join in the discussion, go ahead and add comments or questions on the right-hand side. If you'd like to ask a question, type /Q first, then the rest of us will be able to see that question on the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and get started by meeting our guests.
Cool. So we'll let our guests introduce themselves. I'd like to start off with Emma Johnson. Would you mind introducing yourself, please? So excited to have you.
Hi, guys. So it's good to see you. I'm Emma Johnson, and I'm a longtime financial and business journalist. The last job I had was at the Associated Press Financial Wire. And since then, I've been self-employed for a long time, like 12 years or something. And I used to have a column at MSN Money. I'm currently a contributing editor at Success Magazine and Forbes Magazine. And I've been in the Times and the Wall Street Journal, all kinds of things. And over the last few years, I have really focused on my own platform, which is wealthysinglemommy.com, which is a blog and community for professional single moms. And that has morphed into a passion project, but more than that, it's really my business now. And I have 100,000 visitors a month, and I have tens of thousands of women in my communities. And I have my own podcast, which is called Like a Mother with Emma Johnson. I just had Ariana Huffington on, which is
nice.
And I'm a mom. I live in New York. My kids are going to stay asleep in the next room over here. I swear it.
That's awesome. So excited to have you. Emma's the whole reason we actually have this show. So it's a very fun story that we'll tell another time. Karen, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Karen Rayforth. I'm a psychologist and a consultant. I do organizational development and diversity work. I do that part-time, self-employed, but most of the time I'm working in the arts community as an advocate, as well as working in radio. We have a weekly LGBT kind of news interview show out of KGNU in the Denver metro area. And also you can get it kgnu.org if you go to outsources anytime. And basically we just cover a gazillion different issues around LGBTQ people that come through town, people we call up across the nation. We have people internationally. I just interviewed someone from Uganda. We try to focus on what we think might be of interest to our listeners and kind of lift them up for the community to think about and maybe take some actions or change their ways.
Absolutely. You have a great show, and you had us on as a guest a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of fun on it. It was pretty cool.
We did, if for those who are watching on the right-hand side, there is a little bit of a bio there for both Karen and Emma. So if you want to link to their sites, there's links there if you want to do that. So
absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question that we have is, to start off with, so this actually came up when Emma and I was on her podcast, and we were talking about why gay men seem to have so much debt. And one of the takeaways that I had from that was that there's this perception that the gay men specifically, but maybe the queer community in general, have all this extra income. So ever since then, we've been batting that discussion back and forth, and so that's why we brought you guys on. So Emma, since you were kind of the nucleus of all this, what's your take on things? Does the gay community, maybe specifically the gay men and generally the queer community, have more money? Are we wealthier?
Well, right. So the assumption is like, you guys are so fabulous, right? Like, how can you not have more money? You don't have kids. You all work in executive positions in fashion.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
All you do is look gorgeous and loud by pools and tiny swimsuits, right? Of course you
anymore.
So that's what the look is, right? Like, that's the media perception. And then, that we assume like, okay, right, you don't have kids, and anybody that has even smelled a child knows how expensive they are. So there's just a lot of just blind assumptions. And I always in the back of my mind was always really interested in this because there's that Freakonomics. I think they did a whole hour on it a few years ago, and I just brought it up again. It was from a bunch of years ago, and they were digging, 2013, and they dug into this whole thing. And the title is, you can look it up, it's on Freakonomics.com, Are Gay Men Really Rich? A new for their podcast. And so they really dug into it, all of the layers. So, okay, yeah, if you don't have kids, that makes you richer. They tend to live in cities, right? Gay people congregate in urban areas. That's like the assumption, and there's a lot of truth to that also. But then they dug into it even more. Well, and I wonder if they did the same studies now today or in a few years, but all the discrimination in the workplace meant that they were ultimately, at the end of the day, no, they were actually poor gay men. Gay women tend to fare better, but then gay women also tend to have families more. But the world is changing so much. I mean, gay marriage, like everything is changing so quickly now, so I don't know how relevant those statistics even are anymore.
Yeah, it is changing pretty rapidly. And that ties into the study that you found based out of the UK, that a gay man in executive level position has to spend about 54,000 pounds, was it?
$54,000.
American dollars to stay up with his peers. Everything else being equal, same level of education.
What do you mean spend it or earn that much?
And they need to spend more on education, training,
like overcompensate.
Yeah, overcompensate to stay up with their peers.
Right. Yeah. Basically, what it's saying was a combination of time spent on the job, education that they had to take either before entering the workforce or while they were in the workforce, and the efforts that they would make in what they did to try to equal their straight counterparts in their same line of work. So they would spend more time, more energy, more money trying to get that same level of I don't know, it's not necessarily acceptance, but to earn the same amount of money.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I think the Freakonomics thing, guys, too, and Karen, maybe you can talk to this too, is like the mental health stuff, like depression, anxiety. They were much more prevalent amongst the gay community, and of course that takes its toll in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why we brought Karen on, because she mentioned when we were up on her show that there's a whole spectrum of the queer community that, for example, kids who get kicked out of their house at 12 and 14, well, they're already starting behind the 8 ball relative to those of us who, had our parent keep us until we were 18 or 20.
Right.
You can speak to that, Karen.
I mean, absolutely. In fact, there was just a big study in New York Times was highlighting this week that was talking about, once you get behind economically, you will then get behind educationally. Once you get behind educationally, you will get behind ultimately in salary and experience and opportunity, healthcare. It all tumbles down from there. And certainly in our community, with a lot of kids getting kicked out of their house or getting kicked out of school, or whatever reason, there are more kids that are homeless. Even if you have a supportive family and you made it through, for example, high school or something, or even college, wisely waited to come out until the day after graduation. But even so, the health disparities and the mental health disparities continue throughout people's lifespans. And unfortunately, our healthcare providers, some of them are up to speed, a lot of them are not. And if we shift over to the transgender community, things are far worse.
Yeah.
Likelihood of
Karen, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I think I may be getting further and further away as I start.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, sometimes it's going in and out a little bit, Karen.
Okay. So basically what I was trying to talk about was around the homelessness issue, and also then talking about disparities that happen in our community around mental health and physical health that may continue throughout your lifespan. You may not get care. And then we all know if you don't get preventive care, that it's much more expensive to fix something later. We know that in every area. And certainly, if you look at some of the issues going on in Mississippi, North Carolina, for anybody who thought we're done, everything is cool, those are wake-up calls that things are no more done than they were a few years ago, and that the backlash is getting going. And that was a big fight at the national level around, you go after marriage, when a lot of people if they got married, would lose their job or their housing.
Yeah.
Can you really do that? And that's what's coming up in some of these southern states. You don't have protection. You could lose your job. You could lose your home.
Yeah, we have Dave Montez on from One Colorado, and he informed us that there are still 28 states that if you put a picture of your spouse on your desk, you could get fired with no recourse.
Yeah. Right.
So
people forget that. I mean, sometimes even my friends around in the Boulder County area, I'll say, you need to get outside the county. You have no idea what the rest of this country is like. It's a fairly moderately conservative country.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
though, maybe
That's true. And I'm saying this is somebody that lives in New York and works in media in New York City. I'm from a small town in the Midwest, and I like to think I'm from there, but I've been in New York a long time, and I forget what's going on in America.
yeah. So how do you perceive it in New York City? Is this something that most of your friends and colleagues recognize this challenge, or
the challenge? Well, I mean, this, by the way, this is not the focus of my work. The gay community, I'm straight, and I write a lot about my dating and sex life, and I write very much from a straight person's perspective.
Yes, you do.
I'm very interested in gender and gender pay gap and disparity in gender wealth and family, and so that's something I can speak a lot more authority on. But to your question, John, I do we're very progressive here, and that's one of the reasons I like living here, is because I can assume everyone's left. I don't have to tiptoe around how fucked up Donald Trump is. I just let that flag fly like crazy around here without any second thoughts about it. Right. And I take for granted that is just not America. Yeah. And so that, I think I'm answering your question, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The media is here. That's another reason why I live here, is because I work in media, and the media is very, very central to New York City.
Right. So if you take into account that, we don't have children, oftentimes, we got together later in our lives and had a good time, spent a lot of money on clothing and a lot of unnecessary things. Is it still then true is the perception still true or correct that we have more money when you take into account all of the challenges we have to overcome?
Well, I think just statistically, no, you have less.
Right.
You shared with me some numbers, John, about accumulated wealth, invested wealth. And it was gay people have less than straight people, but I actually think some cases gay women had more, but the numbers were not wildly skewing.
Yeah.
Right. I think that when you look at the investment assets that a typical gay head household has, they have about $6,000 more on average invested for retirement. But the amount of money that their households earn is slightly below average. So it is kind of interesting. I think one of the things you brought up, Emma, was the whole idea of the cost of kids. And the USDA came out with their study recently that said in 2013, the cost of raising an average middle-class child to the age of 18, not including college, was $245,000. And you think you think about if that's the average, you think about all of these families that are raising children. Now that includes things like the cost of a house and healthcare and those kinds of things, which in some cases, you look at some of the houses that gay individuals or gay couples have. Sometimes they're just as big or as expensive as their straight counterparts, but they're not spending that money. So I think maybe the idea is that we have more because we spend a little bit more of our disposable income on ourselves. And
on the visual stuff.
I think it's the things that people see. They say, oh, you're wealthy because you have a slightly nicer car, or you go on two more vacations a year than I do. Well, maybe you're not comparing yourself to the right group of people. I mean, we have a friend of ours that are a couple, and they are unfortunately not able to have children. And John and I oftentimes compare ourselves financially to them because they don't have children and they seem to be on this very similar level of lifestyle as we are.
Great couple.
Yeah, exactly.
They drink a lot of wine in Toronto.
I was wondering though if you're not just like buying into those stereotypes too, because I mean, look, you guys work in high finance. You are like, you're pretty fabulous. That's how you guys got your debt pickle, those years ago, right? Because
Yeah, we were pretty fabulous.
spending like cute, and you live in an urban city, so like that's one environment. But Karen's speaking to like America, which is small town people who are getting kicked out of their house with a 14.
Right.
And that's a whole other thing. But here's a question though. I mean, John, you talked about this when you were on my podcast a little bit. I mean, there is a pressure in your community to be fabulous. That's a very real factor when it comes to money. Yeah. So why don't you guys talk about that?
I think for gay men, there's that pressure, especially when we were younger. And we were just talking to somebody about this today. We had friends who were doctors and lawyers, working for the DNC attorneys, pretty high and mighty people making a lot of money, who were hanging out at the same time at clubs and bars with retail queens who were working at Abercrombie & Fitch, Banana Republic. And with the way they spent and the way they lived their lives, you wouldn't know who was the doctor and who was hanging shirts at Abercrombie & Fitch. But obviously they couldn't both have the same income. And I think that, we kind of fell in the middle. I think that there was that pressure, at least anyway in the 90s, to look fabulous, go out every weekend, dance all weekend long, go have fabulous dinners and happy hours. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think the queer community is sort of integrating more with the straight community. And I don't think younger kids go out clubbing as much as they used to. And that's why the gay club scene is dying worldwide, actually.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was just an article based in the New York Times, I think, recently that I think you used to have like 20-some gay clubs, and now you're down to like 7 or 10 or something like that. It's dropped pretty significantly.
This is a little bit different. But yeah, New York, there's nowhere to go dancing. And we used to rely on you guys to get the dance party going.
Yeah.
And I don't go out clubbing anymore, but I understand that the lesbian clubbing scene has pretty much vanished worldwide. So I think that's another issue. But I think where we get confused with what the media feeds to us is that we're talking about a middle and upper class professional gay couple. Mm-hmm. And the queer community spans every age, race, gender, sexual orientation, all of that. There's a huge spectrum.
Right.
And we all know that there's economic disparities if you look at people of color. I mean, if you just look at that, and then if you look at that within the queer community, you have income disparities. If you look at the community across race, you have income disparities. So, I mean, in some ways, there's this iconic, when people talk about gay male couples, I think they're talking about a white, professional, like you said, Emma, urban group of people, and with a disposable income to do investments. I mean, you interact with a particular group of people that you aren't interacting with people that don't have enough to even pay their rent,
right?
Or they're couch surfing, or they're in shelters, or whatever. I think there's this fantasy that is what gay people are like,
right?
But it's true though. I think I know just like in my work. So I write to my peers like I'm an educated white urban woman who's a single mom, and I take care of my kids. And I've got a pretty place to live, right? And people push back, and that's who I speak to. That's my platform. And I don't care. And people push back and they say, okay, that's not the single mom story in America. Single mom story is it's a racial minority. She's uneducated. Okay, that's a very excellent point, and this a parallel to the gay community. But the changes are always going to start. Like the policy is influenced by these two handsome, rich white men. Right? For better or worse, they have access to Blab. They're controlling our money.
Right. We write for places, whatnot. Yeah.
That's where policy happens, right?
Right.
And so when that, the upper middle class gets with the program, there is eventually a trickle down. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen fast enough. We have our blinders on, but that does not make irrelevant what the debt-free gay guys are doing. It's very important.
Right. No, I concur that it's important. What I think is wrong is the fantasy, which I think some heterosexuals have, is that that's what the gay community is about.
Right.
The debt-free guys.
Well, I think we're probably no more inclined to air our dirty laundry as a community, to air our dirty laundry as a straight couple would be. I mean, my sister lived in a neighborhood of people who they could not stop competing with each other. They had to move out to stop competing with their neighbors, which, it's pretty similar to what, we experienced at our younger age.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, it's part like a little voyeuristic too, and it's like it's the juicy stuff because that is your story. It's
right.
Like you guys were young and you were partying, and John, we talked about this a little bit, like this whole thing about coming from smaller. I mean, that's just how. I mean, it's not just gay, but it's always been like you're the freaky gay kid in your small town. You
right.
don't fit in. Maybe you had mental health problems, or maybe you're kicked out of your house or picked on for sure. And then you flock to the nearest city, and man, you find your people, and you want to stay up all night partying with them.
Exactly.
And that's the real part of the equation. And that's what, like, I think I want to hear you guys talk about that more because that's such a universul story.
Right.
Well, you know what? One of the things that's interesting is John and I come from very different backgrounds.
Mm.
When I graduated from high school, I didn't go to college. I was raised in a very religious family and it wasn't encouraged. It wasn't until I was 26 that I came out. When I came out, I lost all of my friends and family, all of them, because all of my friends and family were part of the religious group that I was a part of. And I got a job. This was in 1995, making $17,000 a year. I did not have a college education, but if I look back over the years, every time I made the decision to try to improve myself, whether it was trying to get a promotion or going part-time so that I could go to school full-time, or leaving one job so I could go to another job to get a different set of skills, or maybe then going back to school a second time so I could get another set of skills that I knew I could get a job that I was a little bit more passionate about or felt better about. I think I am at a point now where I feel successful and very happy where my income level is, but I also feel like I've made some significant changes along the way. And I do sometimes I wonder, I think to myself, is that something that is inherent to me, or is that because I was a part of a community that seemed to kind of egg me on to want to try to do better? And sometimes some people, I think of one of the statistics that we talked about in prepping for this is that 20% of the homeless community is LGBT youth. There's a lot. There's more than that's twice the normal population. So there's a large number of LGBT youth. Are they being put into those kinds of circumstances where they feel like they're going to be able to succeed or be successful? Sometimes I have to wonder: was it environment, or was it
nature?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the story is that you're so high risk, like you're so without being ostracized completely from your community. You could have gone the other way. Instead, you really, the worst case scenario is that you bought too many Abercrombie shirts and wound up in debt, which led to this.
He never bought Abercrombie until he met me. He was always a
like guy. You guys, can you have shared?
You know me, I'm short. He's tall. But I guess that's a good question. So if this is going to be of any value, I guess the message is to the youth or those who are struggling to sort of to catch up with the middle class. What do you think? Was it nurture or nature? Do you think? I mean, you got into the same group that I got into. Yeah. Did you just feel like you had to compete and try to keep up with them career-wise and educationally, or what do you think it was just inherent in you to do that?
I think that part of it was that I always knew that I wanted to do better, and so there was this constant reminder in the back of my head: what is it going to take to do a little bit better? How am I going to be better this year than I was last year? Whether that's financially, educationally, or in my relationships, whatever it was, I think there was something in the back of I think that's part of the reason why John and I oftentimes are reaching out to the youth in our community and saying, we talk about how life gets better, but John and I want to say this is how it gets better. It gets better because you make a couple of choices along the way. It doesn't just get better by accident.
Right. It's those little steps. Not these gigantic things, these little steps you make over time, just like you said, a transition here and a lateral move. You have to make sometimes 2 or 3 lateral moves before you get the promotion that you want, going back to school, getting your master's, whatever, all those little things to try to continue to get ahead. So Karen, I'll ask you, since you work with a lot of youths and who are struggling, what's the best way to get that message to them? Or are they getting that message, I guess?
Well, I think, the good thing about the internet with all youth, that would include rural kids that aren't in urban centers, which is, a lot of times kids leave for an urban center to be able to come out or be able to be who they authentically are. And I think the internet is a good way. I mean, being able to hear podcasts, see people that are successful, hear people's stories, understand what people are doing, take some hope from that. I mean, it just for the two of you, you helped each other get better. So sometimes it's an adult that will help. Sometimes it's a peer who will help to help you have some hope and spread a good message. I mean, most of the youth really actually trust each other more than adults most of the time.
We're no longer cool.
Yeah. So we are hoping those messages get to somebody, then they spread it to each other.
Yeah.
And they have messages for there are many places to get assistance, to get support. It doesn't even have to be within the queer community. You can get an ally like Emma that can help you, give you an idea, somebody else that would give you hope, be a role model, give you an idea of what's one step you could take to move forward.
Right. I guess
I think there's a lot.
One thing I'm always a big fan of, find people to help you. But honestly, it's just the people you hang out with every day.
Yeah.
If you're hanging out with people that are like shopaholics, it's not even funny. Like it is.
I stopped.
Like,
but it's true.
People that are on the same path or people that are just not ambitious, and you have to find your people. Hopefully, you relate to that. It helps if they're the same, orientation that you are, but they don't have to be. I mean, getting rid of those toxic people out of your life, it's not just like a fun meme that we all share on Facebook. It is really the fruits of that is the root of your success in life.
Right. What's that?
I think that a lot of motivational speakers have repeated this, but if you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years, look at the 10 people you spend the most time with. And oftentimes that's the case. If you're, what do they say? They say that an individual who hangs out with smokers 80% more likely to start smoking. Mm-hmm. An individual who hangs out or spends time with obese people is 80% more likely to become obese themselves, because the patterns and habits that they have become your patterns and habits too.
Yeah, that's why I think
divorce is true too. If your friend gets divorced, you're like 60. That's a fact.
Let's go down together.
Statistic.
And that's why when we went to FinCon in September for the first time, I think that was our first time. Was that yours or your second time?
That was my second year, yeah.
Second time. So it was just it was so weird because I'm like, David, these are our people. We don't live our lives in our dining room doing all of our debt-free guy stuff. And so we went to FinCon and there were 900 people that are doing similar stuff to what we're doing. And it was so inspirational to realize, yet again, we aren't an anomaly. We're not weird. Yeah. There are people, well, maybe we are weird, but there are other people like us. And that's what I think is key is if you're struggling to get ahead, no matter where you are, gay, straight, whatever, if you're struggling to get ahead, no matter what your circumstances are, if you get yourself surround yourself with people who are trying to do better, who are getting better, and always finding somebody who's just a little bit ahead of you. Yeah. Just for example, Emma telling us, this is what you got. I'm a little bit ahead of you. This is what you need to do, and proof is that it's right. And kind of nudged us along to do just a little bit better, take a little bit of a gamble that we wouldn't have otherwise taken, and that's made all the difference for us. So
yeah, I think that's a great example. So people who are listening that don't know, it's FinCon. You can go and look. It's a conference for people like the debt-free guys and myself who are, it's like we're bloggers in the financial world meet. So it's bloggers and podcasters, people that roughly work in money, in media, and then connect us with the banks that have money that we want to money, put it right into our pocket. So anyways, but that was a big transition for me too, finding them a few years ago, because my community was always freelance writers. And I had a really great run as a freelance writer for many years, but that market just tanked. It just that's not a viable business anymore. And I knew that, I saw that, but all my peers would just like to sit around and bitch and moan about the low rates at magazines. It's like, you can't argue with the market, ladies.
Right.
I just take it. I just think they're so stupid and just whining all the time. I hated them. So I went and found FinCon, and then I'm here on Blab. How good.
Yeah, so I think that's a big takeaway. Find somebody who's a little bit ahead of you. Find people who are trying to improve themselves and get ahead and make their lives better. And regardless of your situation, you can make your life better too.
I think that also when you look back at kind of the maturation of the gay community, how we've matured over the years. You look at in the 70s and 80s, a lot of it was just about personal safety and survival. You didn't want people to know that you were gay, but unless you lived in one of the major metropolitan areas. In the 90s, it became the AIDS crisis, and then people were very aware of it. Again, I think it was a little bit more about personal safety then too. But I think that during that time period, as a gay community, as we maybe migrated out of middle America to the major metropolitan areas, we started doing things that set us up for financial success compared to many of our peers. And moving to pockets of cities where it was maybe a little bit cheaper to live then, but then they became the hotspots. People who lived in Castro 30 years ago,
it was scary.
It was scary, yeah. Or Hell's Kitchen or Chelsea, those areas in New York. But now those are some of the prime real estate areas. Those people have homes that they have sold off, potentially sold off for many multiples of what they originally purchased them for.
Yeah.
So they kind of set themselves up for that. Also, I think a lot of the individuals who moved away from small towns and moved into major metropolitan areas went after careers or jobs that would put themselves in to be in line with financial security, because they were so insecure about maybe personal safety. So that was some of the things that they focused on.
Well, in your situation though, you don't have family resources.
Yeah,
right? Like you don't have people to fall back on, and maybe other people might have inheritances that you can't count on and things. So you have no choice but to be more financially autonomous.
That's true.
Yeah. You either make an effort and succeed, or you fail. You don't want to fail. So
right.
You have that extra fire in your butt.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of, to a certain degree, it may be, it imposes a little bit upon the LGBT youth today to think about that, because they may not have some of those same advantages. The housing costs across the country are skyrocketing, and it's not easy to buy into cheap places.
Right, but
like
now
it was back then.
Legal protections too, right? Now there's insurance and inheritance and legal laws that are grossly protecting many more people.
Yeah. Well, and I think going to the second and third tier cities, like we talked about a couple of career monies back, maybe not going to San Francisco and LA and New York, maybe that isn't your best next step. But maybe going to a second tier city like Pittsburgh, which has got a bustling, growing community, including a queer community, might be a better place to go to at least get the foundation started before you then hop off to one of the bigger cities.
Yeah.
Just kind of be a little bit more strategic about it, and just don't just land where, luck takes you or unluck takes you.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Where the party takes you.
Right, that's true.
I followed the snow. You lived here.
Yeah. John came here to snowboard and found me.
God damn it! I'm gonna go back next year. Anyway, so I think I think this has been pretty valuable. I really liked what I heard. A lot of great takeaways. I think for you is surround yourself with people who want to succeed and people who are doing slightly better than you, so you can help progress. Be strategic about what you do.
Right.
Don't just go where luck takes you. We'll give everybody an opportunity to make some closing thoughts. So I'll start off with you, Karen. Do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share?
I think just that we need as a community to, when we do become in the middle and the upper class, that we need to have some responsibility to reach out to members of our community and give a help hand up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give back. to donate back to support people that aren't doing as well as we might be doing, and see that as part of how you get your place at the table. You know, you are fortunate and you need to share part of your wealth. That doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire. It just means that as you're doing well, support somebody else, help somebody else a little bit, donate to LGBTQ agencies, because a lot of other people won't do that. I mean, the biggest charity giving in this country is to churches. And some churches are very supportive of us and some are very anti-gay.
Right.
And so we need to be supporting our own organizations as well.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
I just
absolutely.
put that out there as a plea to our community to support each other.
Yeah.
We need
Don't forget about everybody else when you make it to the top. So, Emma, do you have any closing thoughts? Yeah.
No,
Emma, do you have any closing thoughts?
like the whole bit about social isolation. You know, we do. You know, we do live in the richest country, one of the richest countries in this world.
Right.
We do, and there is a way. It might not be in your town. It might not be in your family. It might not be in your social circle, but we live in time of affluence and choice, where you can go somewhere where you will find the answers. There are the answers are there. It's just a matter of finding them.
Make the effort and look for them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Any closing thoughts, husband?
Yeah, I do like what Karen said about the participating in your community. I think that it's very important for those of us who do have advantages, whether it's financial or time-wise, that we can use those to help others. Being a mentor to somebody, or just reaching out and offering to help somebody with a project or whatever it may be, looking for those opportunities to help. One of the reasons why we started the Queer Money Show and are continuing is we believe that a strong LGBT community, that one of the foundations or the pillars of that community is a financially strong LGBT community. If we're struggling financially, whether it's because of student loan debt or because we've taken on too much debt for other reasons, or because we haven't made advancements in our careers or whatever it may be, if we're struggling financially, we can't help anybody else because we're too much focused on ourselves. And that's part of the reason why we want to continue to try to encourage individuals to become more financially stable, to become free from the hindrances that don't allow you to participate in your community.
Absolutely.
I think that we'll encourage people to do that.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. We definitely want to thank Karen and Emma. I know Emma had to get her kids to sleep, and it was probably a little more strategic for her to arrive. So thank you for your time.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Sure. We want to thank everybody who's been a part of Queer Money through this iteration. We have a new iteration coming up soon. More to come, but it'll be exciting. So we thank you all for your support. And if you're looking for a charity or organization to help, please don't forget about HIVsmart.org. They are dispelling the myths of HIV. So please research them. And I think they have a crowdfunding campaign going right now that you might be able to help out with. So please check that out. So thank you, everybody. And this is David and John signing off for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.